the change you want to see in the world, it begins with your own actions and your own mindset. Are you disrupting yourself? Are you disrupting your mindset? Are you disrupting your beliefs or the way you see the world? My name is Nikki Verd. I am a future of work coach. I'm passionate about unlocking human potential, and I am an author. I'm a keynote speaker as well. The title of my book is Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. I've had a lot of amazing feedback regarding my book, and it's quite humbling. So if you're joining me today for your first time, in a nutshell, that is who I am. The topic of our conversation is personal disruption. It's about self-disruption. For those who know me, you know that I'm very passionate about disruption, right? The title of my book itself is Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. And it's really about self-disruption, because a lot of us, we know how to disrupt different people. We know how to disrupt systems. But when it comes to our own personal lives and disruption, we tend to delegate that to outside forces. And I wanted us to have a conversation around that today. You are the missing disruption, because the reality is that if the world is constantly changing and constantly disrupting and we are not, then there is a mismatch. If the market is constantly changing and disrupting and you are not, then there is a mismatch. You being the missing disruption, because yes, the world is constantly being disrupted. Technology is disrupting the world. The market is being disrupted. Inflation is disrupting the world currently. Climate change is also disrupting. Globalization is disrupting. The economy is being disrupted. So the question really is, are you disrupted? And well, the answer probably to that is that yes, you are being disrupted by all of these external forces or external factors, right? But the real question is, are you disrupting? Because there's a difference between being disrupted and disrupting. So the big question is, are you disrupting or are you waiting to be disrupted? When you wait to be disrupted, you may not respond very well to that. I've told the story so many times how I got disrupted. My life got disrupted when I was laid off from a job I held to for dear life. And I did not see the retrenchment coming. I didn't see the layoff coming. I went to work one morning. My boss called me in for a meeting, and I thought it was a meeting to bring him up to speed with what has been happening at work. But by the end of that meeting, I was jobless. They told me the company is restructuring and they have been wondering, how to break the news. And there was no better way than to just say, sorry, you are no longer needed, or your position is no longer needed, and sorry, we have to let you go. So I was disrupted. That's why when it came for me to write the book, I thought, what better title than Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted? Because here I was minding my business. Someone disrupted my life. My boss disrupted my life. So when I speak about these things, I speak from personal experience, because I have experienced what being disrupted feels like. To say that period when I got laid off was the worst period of my life, or one of the darkest moments of my life, that would be an understatement. I did not see layoff coming. I didn't see it coming, and it just took me unaware. So when you are at that point in your life where you are able to anticipate and see the future and take some drastic changes, that is you disrupting. But when you sit and external forces happen to you, you are being disrupted. And in this case, I do not want you to put yourself in a vulnerable situation where you will be essentially being disrupted. You should be the one driving the disruption. You should be the one moving ahead. You should be the one making those difficult changes and making those difficult decisions. Okay, do you need to transition completely? Do you perhaps need to change an industry? Do you perhaps need new skills? Those are questions that you need to ask yourself to be able to disrupt yourself properly, So you are the missing disruption, because if the market is changing and globalization is affecting us and the economy is being disrupted and technology is disrupting our lives and disrupting the marketplace, if all of these things are happening and you are not doing anything about it to align yourself with where the world is going, it therefore means you are putting yourself at a vulnerable situation and you are not disrupted, or you are not disrupting. You are the missing disruption. If everything else is happening around you, but you are still holding on to the old mindset that no longer work, old skills that are obsolete, then you are not disrupting. You need to come to that point where you start to disrupt your own self. You start to disrupt your own life. Generally, disruption typically refers to the introduction of new business models or new business ideas, new technologies or methods that challenge and potentially reshapes established industries and systems. That is what we understand about disruption, because when many people hear of disruption, they just attribute it to as a business concept. And yes, disruption is a business concept, but for you to be in alignment, you need to also disrupt your own self. So if the marketplace is being disrupted by technologies, you as an individual need to sit back and ask yourself, how do I disrupt myself so that I can be in alignment with where the market is? What are the new skills that are in demand in the new economy? Am I disrupting myself to be in alignment with that? Are you disrupting yourself to be in alignment with that? Those are important questions that you need to ask yourself. In the midst of the digital age, disruption isn't merely about innovative technologies. It's not about the latest apps. This is a period that signifies an entirely shift or an entire new shift in the way we perceive the world. How are you seeing the world? So it's about embracing a new era, adopting fresh perspectives, forging unconventional paths, and making a living, or a new way of making a living. It's about redefining your approach to work. It's about reshaping the very essence of doing business and of interacting even with each other. While many people may associate disruption solely to new business models, which is rightfully so, it is equally relevant, to attribute disruption at a deeply personal level. Ask yourself, are you disrupting yourself? Are you disrupting your mindset? Are you disrupting your beliefs or the way you see the world? Are you disrupting that, or you are still running on what you have been running on for the past 5 years, for the past 6 years, for the past 10 years? Meanwhile, the world has moved on. Maybe you are still hanging on to a degree that you had 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You haven't added any other skills to that. You haven't added any other qualification to that. You are behind if that is where you are operating, if that is where you are. When you wait to be disrupted, you are putting yourself at a very vulnerable situation. And that is not a place for anyone to be. It's not a good place for anyone to be. So personal disruption, this is really what we're talking about. It's not business disruption. It is not government disruption. Okay? This is personal disruption. And it essentially means that the change you want to see in the world, it begins with your own actions and your own mindset. What is it you want to see in your career? What is it that you want to see different in your life? All of that begins with you taking steps to disrupt yourself, to disrupt your thinking, to disrupt your perception of life. It is about recognizing that you have the power to create positive change and taking intentional steps to make it happen. By starting with yourself, by disrupting yourself, you can inspire others to do the same, and this can create a ripple effect of positive change. I did not intentionally disrupt myself. Again, when I tell the story of how I got laid off from a job, that was not my doing, but somehow I was able to reinvent myself after that. And that is why I'm passionate about this subject, wanting people to anticipate, see what is happening in the world and align themselves accordingly. Wanting people to ask themselves difficult questions, hard questions, and disrupt themselves accordingly. Ask yourself, how is technology impacting your industry? How is technology impacting your profession? How is technology impacting your business? When you ask yourself these questions, it will give you clues on how you need to disrupt yourself. It will give you clues on the things you need to do differently so that you can align yourself with where the world is going. When you ask yourself difficult questions, it's going to allow you and give you the ability, to do what is right so that you stay relevant. Otherwise, you will find yourself obsolete in the market. And that, again, is not the place you want to be. You have the power to challenge the status quo. You have the power to innovate and bring about positive transformation in various domains of your life. Is it your business? Is it your career? Is it personal relationships? You have the power to challenge the status quo and change things. When you begin to realize, I am the missing disruption. Everything is being disrupted around me, but I am the missing disruption. Everything is being disrupted around you. You are the missing disruption. You have the power to initiate and drive change and drive disruption, personal disruption in your own life. So I wanted us to explore this concept of personal disruption so that people who are not yet disrupting themselves, people who are not yet at that position where they are really asking themselves difficult questions, they can wake up, This is about your ability to pivot and evolve and ignite personal change in the midst of transformative times. Artificial intelligence is transforming our world beyond what we could ever imagine. So you cannot afford to sit back and fold your hands. You cannot afford to sit back and hope that one day you wake up and the world is back to normal. That is not how it's going to play out. So it is important that you ask yourself difficult questions. Disruption involves looking at problems from new perspectives and finding innovative solutions. It can be seen both as a threat, yes, but it can also be seen as an opportunity, depending on how you're looking at it and depending on how you are perceiving it. So, but there are people that are entirely focused on the threats that come from disruption. It can also be an opportunity, but when you are driving that disruption in your own life, you are able to navigate and see the opportunities. But when someone disrupts your own life, it's sometimes impossible to see opportunities in the midst of that confusion because you are still trying to process what happens. Like in my case, when I got laid off, it took months, if not over a year, for me to actually process losing my job, and be able to get back on my feet and find a different way to be able to survive. It took a long time for me. But if you can sit and plan, what you're going to do with your life in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, when you are able to do that, plan and disrupt yourself accordingly, it is easy to navigate the disruption that is being initiated by you. But when outside forces are forcing you to disrupt, it becomes very chaotic and it becomes very painful to navigate that disruption. At its very core, personal disruption is an embodiment of forward thinking. This is something I've mentioned. It is the unwavering commitment to evolve and reinvent yourself as the world undergoes radical change. In an era that is being defined by uncertainty, the people who are going to thrive are the ones who don't merely adapt to change, but those who are proactively seeking that change. So don't wait until you are being disrupted and then you start finding out how do you adapt to this disruption. No, proactively seek it. Proactively ask yourself, how do you do this? Reinvent yourself. The journey of personal disruption commences when you start looking within yourself and finding out, understanding your values, your passions, and your aspirations. What do you want to do differently? It is this introspection that will unveil the unique potential for transformation that is residing within you. There is so much inside of you. There is a sleeping giant inside of you. There's so much potential, but some people will not be able to unlock that potential until they start disrupting themselves, until they start disrupting familiar patterns, things that they are used to, things that they are familiar with, until you start disrupting your comfort zone. So recognize your strengths and acknowledge your areas or the areas in your life that needs improvement. Embrace vulnerability as a catalyst for growth. Remember that personal disruption is about amplifying your authenticity, not erasing it. This is very important. And you need to go beyond traditional boundaries. You need to have a shift in perspective because this disruption isn't confined to traditional boundaries. It extends to every facet of life. Consider fresh ways of making a living. Maybe you got laid off like I did in the past. I'm still working though I don't have a job. So there are other ways you can make a living without necessarily having a job. Perhaps through remote work, perhaps through freelancing, perhaps through entrepreneurship. So you need to challenge conventional career paths and embrace alternative avenues that align with your passion. But this is not going to be possible if you are not on a mission to self-disrupt. This is not going to be possible if you are not willing to embark on a journey to personally disrupt your own self. So you need to adopt new ways of working that fosters creativity and collaboration. Embrace the gig economy, explore project-based engagement, or leverage technology for more remote collaboration. In the age of digital transformation, flexibility and adaptability are prized assets. And this doesn't happen without you looking deep inside to find which areas of my life do I need to disrupt. You need to adopt the entrepreneur mindset. This is about being a personal disruptor. Entrepreneurs don't merely navigate change, they thrive on it. Adopt a mindset that views challenges as opportunities, a mindset that views setback as lessons, a mindset that views problems as potential solutions, waiting to happen. So this is about when you embark on personally disrupting yourself, you are on a roadmap to reinvention. That is personal disruption in action. And embarking on a journey of personal disruption isn't merely about just envisioning change. It's about taking tangible steps towards transformation. You start small, aligning your actions with your newfound perspective. Even seemingly minor steps hold immense power when you start stepping out to disrupt yourself and do things differently. Embrace change as part of the process. The road may be difficult and have roadblocks and chaos on it, but each challenge is a stepping stone towards your growth. Personal disruption thrives on determination, on taking action, on turning vision into tangible reality, on turning potential into reality. There are so many people that are not living at their full potential. Why? Because they have not taken on that journey to disrupt themselves. They are relying entirely on what the academia gave them, on what their certificate has for them. Maybe their potential lies beyond their academic qualifications. Maybe their potential lies outside of the job they're currently doing, but they are unable to step out and take a step towards that disruption to really do something different, right? So become the catalyst for your own personal disruption. If this is going to happen, it's up to you. If something different is going to happen in my life, it's up to me. That is what personal disruption is really all about. So in a world where digital transformation and digital disruption is shaping every fabric of society, personal disruption is emerging as a beacon of hope and empowerment for individuals, for people who are proactive and futuristic. It is about reshaping not only your life, but your perception of what is possible, because for so many people they cannot imagine themselves not having a job. I also was that person. I couldn't imagine surviving without having a 9-to-5. I thought my life was wrapped around it, but when it was taken away from me in the blink of an eye, I was able to find different ways to reinvent myself, and I'm quite happy and passionate with what I do now. So personal disruption transcends conventional ways of making a living. It transcends technology and innovation. It is about resilience and your adaptability of the human spirit and being able to take a journey into the unknown. And as you embark on this transformative journey, remember that personal disruption is an ongoing process. It's a lifelong commitment to growth and reinvention. So you need to embrace forward thinking. You need to adopt an entrepreneur mindset. You need to take action with determination. In doing so, you will become an embodiment of personal disruption. You will forge your own path in the age of transformation, and you will redefine what it means to be living in this revolutionary time. Because the power is in your hands. You will redefine what it means to be relevant. You may need to sign up for either a 3-month course or 6-month course or 1-year course so that you can upskill yourself. For some listening, you may need to reskill entirely and transition careers and move into something else. For some people listening, maybe it's time for you to take the leap and start the business you have been wanting to start for so long. But it all starts when you realize you are the missing disruption. Don't wait until you're being disrupted from the outside forces. Take proactive action. Disrupt your own life. You can plan your disruption ahead of time. You can plan it 6 months. You can plan it 1 year. You can plan it 2 years. You can plan it 5 years. But take note. One thing you cannot afford to do is to sit back with the mindset, well, whatever will be, will be. Whatever will happen, will happen. That is a dangerous mindset to have. Do not put yourself in that place.